Hey, Abby. Happy Thursday.
Hey Sierra, happy Thursday. I may have a kind of spotty connection, but I'm going to park and have a great connection here in just a few minutes.
No worries. It's all good. I'm so excited for our discussion today. Happy Thursday, everyone. It is episode 9 of Mindful Business. I cannot believe we are 9 episodes deep. This is awesome. And today's episode is dedicated to discussing digital marketing, which is near and dear to all of our hearts. The room is still continuing to fill up, but for anyone who's new to our spaces, usually we have some kind of casual discussion for a bit. And then usually the last 15 to 20 minutes or so of the space, we open up the floor for feedback, comments, questions, discussion. It's a safe space. All are welcome. So with that being said, how are you doing, Abby? How's your day going?
I'm doing great. It's a gorgeous day here in the Midwest. I had to take a little road trip for some appointments. And I don't know what my brain thought. I thought I would totally be home by now, but I'm not, which is fine because I need to kind of gather my thoughts and sit and enjoy some coffee anyway. And so I'm excited to share this time with you. I think we both love this subject. And I always love that we each have like really similar points of view on so many things, but we've had such unique experiences that I think it makes for such a great conversation. So I'm really excited to dig in today.
Me too. Nice to hear that you're having a little road trip adventure on your way home. And you don't sound stressed out at all. You sound like you're looking forward to just hanging out, having some coffee, and chatting with me. So that's awesome.
That is
Okay.
that is exactly my mindset. It's been a great morning. It was a really nice appointment that I had. I love solo road trips. Just side note, I have always from the time I was able to drive loved getting on the road by myself, and that has never gone away 30 years later. So yeah, I love to get on the road by myself, listen to what I want to. I'm always down to grab coffee, snacks, and just sort of park and like enjoy the sun. And so this is actually perfect.
Solo road trips are so nice. I used to take a lot of solo road trips. One of my first job, I worked for the Department of Environmental Conservation for the state of New York, and my job was to help out with the state campgrounds. And I spent a lot of time driving through the Catskill Mountains and just taking these long drives to the campgrounds by myself. And it was so beautiful and nice. So I know exactly what you mean. Anywho, happy Thursday, everybody. Let's start talking about digital marketing. Before we dive in, I feel like I have to give a little disclaimer, and I feel like Abby kind of has a similar disclaimer, but I'll let her speak for herself. So my disclaimer is this perspective is from a small business owner who does not have unlimited funds to pay a web development agency, a paid marketing agency, a designer. This is coming from the perspective of someone who manages almost everything in house with the support of some of my family, my cousin and husband mostly, but even my parents have pitched in to help at times. So this is not from a corporate perspective. This is from a small business owner perspective. And the advice and feedback and tips that I'm going to talk about today are coming from that kind of foundation. Abby, I'd imagine you're coming from the same realm.
Absolutely. I've been a small business owner, an entrepreneur for 23 years. And I, in that time, have worn all the hats and definitely, especially in the early days, every single piece of marketing, anything that was ever created at all our websites, all our direct email marketing, all of our once upon a time when we actually did print ads, which was like 1,000 years ago. all of that came from me. And I wasn't that great at it at the beginning, even though I thought I was. And boy, I think over time, I turned into a really good marketing professional for myself. In recent years, I have started, working with other people for a little bit of help through collaboration or even outsourcing different things here and there. But 100%, all the things I'll be bringing to the table today in this conversation and discussion are from the perspective of a small business owner who has taken on the role of marketing professional under the realm of small business owner. So yes, I think we are very aligned in our perspectives on this today.
Bootstrap life. Doing what you got to do to put things together and make it work with limited resources. And I feel like a lot of the people listening can probably relate. I know we have some artists, some people who have their own NFT projects and collections and small businesses. So I'm sure that's very relatable. So, Abby, let's, before we talk about basics of digital marketing and kind of boxes you should try to check and best practices, let's talk about why we personally and individually feel like digital marketing is so important, especially in today's day and age. Abby, why do you feel like this is something to have kind of top of mind?
I think that very often people underestimate the value and the amount of time and money that they're going to need to invest in marketing when they start off in their small business ownership journeys. And I have always been a sucker for marketing. Like when I did actually go to, I did go to Illinois State 110 years ago, and I started to major in marketing with a minor in economics. I had an amazing time there and I learned a lot, just not academically. So I didn't finish that program, but I really got the bug. And I have always tuned in to marketing. I've always been a sucker for good packaging, good marketing, good presentation. The thing is, if it doesn't matter how freaking amazing your services are, your product is, all of those things could be absolutely top notch, but if nobody knows, then it's never going to go anywhere, and you'll feel really frustrated. I think it can be awkward for people to like toot their own horn and pat themselves on the back and really get out there consistently and essentially shill themselves, right? It takes this level of having to be okay with selling yourself, and I think folks shy away from that. But my goodness, I think it is of the utmost importance. I think companies think, oh, well, marketing isn't affecting my bottom line. They're not the direct sales people. So people don't value what marketing folks bring to the table. But having been the marketing person for my small business for so many years, I cannot tell you the difference it makes when you do decide to put the time and money in investing in getting your message and your branding and the voice of what you're trying to do out there. It cannot be overlooked. Otherwise, again, no one's going to know what you're doing if you don't sell it. What are your thoughts on that, Sierra?
Absolutely. Scream it from the mountaintops. I mean, at first I was going to say if you own an online based business, your customers are online. But then I thought about that more and it was just like, if you own a business, period, whether it's online or brick and mortar or you do pop ups or whatever, your customers are obviously alive and well in the real world, but they are online. And how you market online is so important because it influences how likely people are to find and purchase your product or service. So digital marketing specifically, when we talk about like using the internet and marketing online, establishing and maintaining that digital presence is what makes your brand visible and relevant. As Abby was saying, so people are continually aware of the value or whatever the differentiator of your service or product is. Digital marketing, especially in Web3, has become a tool of like more so establishing relationships with customers than trying to put heat on them to buy or do anything specifically. It puts you in direct contact with your audience and allows you to have really this direct line of feedback from your customer. And of course, engaging with your audience digitally is another way that you can build trust, even if they're not within physical arm's reach. So I agree, Abby. You got to be your own hype man and put yourself out there. So let's talk about some basics. Like this space is titled Digital Marketing 101. What I really want to talk about is kind of basics and foundation in terms of just the most important high level things to know as you're embarking on your digital marketing journey. So I feel like I'll kick us off and then we can kind of bounce back and forth. I'm going to start with I don't want to start too technical, but I do feel like starting with keywords in SEO is kind of important. And I say that because keywords are, and by SEO means search engine optimization. And keywords are the words that you most often associate with your product or service or brand that customers are going to use to find you online. So for good juju, our keywords are things like crystal healing and crystal carvings or crystal jewelry. And when you're marketing online, it's so important to use terms that are going to make it easier for people to find what you're offering. Even if you're not marketing, even if you're doing print ads, you want to use words and terminology that make it clear whatever your product or service is. So maybe, for example, to get even more granular, instead of saying crystal jewelry, I might further describe a product as a rose quartz crystal beaded elastic stretch bracelet and the beads are 6 millimeters. Like, this is getting really into the weeds of what exactly it is that's available within our store. So Abby, how do you feel in terms of like keywords and SEO and how the language and terminology that you put out there affects your digital presence?
I have to say, this was one of those things I overlooked for a good chunk of the early days of my online marketing, my yoga studio specifically. But I have a brother who works in advertising. His wife also is in advertising, also. And they really helped point me in this direction several years ago. And it definitely made a difference in the metrics when you're measuring, right, the type of traffic you're getting to your website and all of those things. The moment we started really hammering, like, our big thing was teacher training, yoga teacher training, as well as yoga services and wellness and all those things. And yeah, the more kind of specific you can get about the things you do that set you apart from your competitors and people, flooding the market doing the same things you're doing, those things can make a huge difference. It pushes your searchable information more to the top of those engines when people are Googling, crystals to buy, yoga studios near me, whatever it might be. The more specific you can get with that language, with those keywords, the better chance you have of getting people to see you first when they're out there searching through a whole sea of folks who look just like you in terms of content that you've got available. You want to be able to show up first. You want to be able to kind of push yourself to the top of the list so that it's easy. It's like you become low hanging fruit, right? For people to easily grab and say, this looks good. I'm going to call or text or visit this website. It is important. And, it can feel overwhelming, but I think when you are fine tuning your practices, this is definitely one of the better practices to put into place.
Yoga teacher training. I love that. Absolutely. And good for you for being open to the feedback that you received and not being resistant and being like, oh, well, I've been doing it this way, so I don't want to adapt. That actually that kind of just reminds me of the fact that, like, it's important to make informed decisions. And I love that you mentioned that, you can see the difference when you look at your data and your analytical tools that are available to you. So if you're marketing on Facebook or Instagram, it's now called the Meta Business Suite. How amazing, the Meta Business Suite. And this is where all the information lives about how your posts are performing. And this is important because there are too many of us out here with all of this information at our fingertips, not looking at it and using it to make informed decisions. The formula is simple, y'all. Reproduce and replicate what works and quickly abandon what doesn't. And this is important because reviewing your content performance on a monthly basis is how you quickly adjust. And it's basically you're kind of doing your own small scale A/B testing. And this is what helps you not waste time creating content that your audience is unlikely to resonate with. So it's never too late to change your strategy. How do you feel about that, Abby? Are you someone who kind of looks at the numbers and then adjusts accordingly in terms of the content that you're creating?
Probably not every month. You are definitely much more of a go-getter than I probably am. I will say once upon a time, possibly more so than I do now. When I had physical yoga studios, up to three once upon a time, I was definitely a bit more hands-on with shifting things that weren't working and probably a little more active about trying to shift those things monthly. There's been a lot of shifts in my personal life and business life in the last year to year and a half, especially. And so I've tried to like find a more balanced approach for myself where I am aware of those things and I am making changes when they need to be made. But I think I've stepped back to zoom out a little bit. And I wouldn't say that I do it monthly, but probably more so seasonally, right? Like per quarter. And I think probably the truth for me is somewhere in the middle, somewhere between those things. It's just, life is always shifting and you have to kind of find your footing again. We're always talking about finding balance, but it's life is funny about moving that point of balance on you all the time. And so you just when you get your footing in one place, you got to learn to balance somewhere else. So I'm in that like finding my balance again rhythm. So I'd like to get back to closer to every say 6 to 8 weeks rather than 12 weeks making those adjustments. But yes, I do just in a different way.
I love that you kept it real, and I'm going to keep it real. Working up to reviewing content performance on a monthly basis has been quite a journey, and it absolutely would not be possible without the help of our digital marketing intern, who is also my first cousin and a lovely human being. So, that being said, when you're the only person doing everything, you're kind of spreading yourself out and there's only so much you can look at within a given week or month. And I totally understand that. If you have the support or the bandwidth, it's an amazing idea to regularly look at this stuff so that you can just like, it's a shame if you make a bunch of content and it's not resonating with anyone and there's no way of you knowing that until it's too late and until you've already wasted months creating it and just scratching your head wondering, why is no one engaging? Why is no one engaging with this? I also think it's kind of, this reminds me of just kind of meeting customers where they are. I think this is different for every business. I think for some businesses, maybe you're more present in real life if you have brick and mortar. Uh, Stores, or if you have a service that requires you to offer it in person, like being a massage therapist or a yoga teacher. But for people with online based businesses, maybe your customers are clustered more on Facebook than they are Instagram. Meeting your customer where they are is so, so, so important because you're kind of limiting friction and you're making it easier for them to get whatever it is that you're trying to offer them. So, for example, I recently enabled checkout through Facebook and Instagram because I noticed that's where a lot of our customers are spending their time. That's where we're getting the most interaction. And our audience is also very active on Twitter. So you can see on our Twitter page that our store is connected to our Twitter and our Twitter is shoppable. So we invest a lot of energy in being very present and accessible here. So Abby, how do you feel about meeting your customer where they are and how has this principle kind of served you?
So again, I'm in this transition and so I really worked hard to do that for the longest time. Most of my client base really responded to Facebook. I grew most of my business on Facebook over the 16, 17 years that I ran my brick and mortars. And, whether you like it or not, it's, as you said, it really does behoove us and pays to meet the client where they are. Here, I'm trying to shift, right, from Web 2 everything into Web 3. And I've been working real hard in the last going on 1 year of doing that. And it's a challenge because the existing clientele that I had certainly isn't here in Web3. And I think that becomes the challenge of digital marketing here in Web3 when we're trying to onboard people. And I don't know if there's room in our conversation to dig into that, but that's kind of where I am finding the challenge. I need to go back to Insta and to Facebook, even though my brain doesn't wanna. Like, I love Twitter and I love being over here and I love hanging with my Web3 peeps. But if I really want to tap into the clientele that I've spent the last freaking 20 some years building, I really am trying to be more flexible and trying to realize that I do have to go and meet them where they are and try to figure out how to make all this exciting stuff that I love about Web3 accessible over there in Web 2 to the people that I have over there. So I've slowly been transitioning. I had left Facebook last December, and wasn't gonna look back because I really enjoyed the break. But after being here in Web 3 for so long, it is becoming eminently clear that I've got to find ways to make it more approachable, more accessible, and the only way I can do that is through marketing. And if we're going to meet people where they are all the fuck over there on Facebook, whether I like it or not. So I've been working on it. I've been consistently building my content back up over there on a personal level, and that's where I get most of my clients. Right, is when I'm being personal and authentic um, on my actual feed. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I'm just hesitant to do it, but I'm back to doing it. So, but the reason I am is because that's what works. So you're right about that, Sierra.
I love how you make it sound like it's such an obligation and burden to be on Facebook, and I feel the same exact way. I am not a Facebook person. I never honestly, I'm going to be real. Once my parents got on Facebook, I was like, well, not sure that this is not sure this is a hot spot for me anymore. No, seriously, because my mom was blowing up my feed, tagging me in baby pictures and then family reunion stuff. And it just became like this way to stay connected with family, which is amazing. But for me, it just kind of became distracting because I was just like, oh my God, like what embarrassing picture from me being 10 years old am I going to like discover has now surfaced on Facebook because my mom thought Throwback Thursday meant embarrass her daughter. But anyways, that being said, I am not a huge Facebook person. I abandoned it a while ago. But I have discovered that with Good Juju, it's the same deal. Like our activity when we look at conversion on our store, month after month, our Facebook content converts the best. And we have a very large active following of, I guess, community members on Facebook, despite me not wanting to use it. So I totally feel that. And that being said, I feel like if you are super active on one platform but not another, it is important to try and, I guess, save yourself energy by repurposing a single piece of content as many times as possible. And Abby and I mean, this is kind of like what we're doing by recording our Twitter spaces live and having this discussion with everyone here presently in the room. But then recording them and putting them up on YouTube so that this single piece of content can have multiple more uses as people continue to listen to it over time. This could also be taking a long form blog article and breaking it out into shorter posts or transforming it into a graphic. So I do encourage you all, if you're making content, be creative about using it multiple times. Don't feel like it's like a one and done, right?
I
Oh no, you're muted.
Shoot, thank you. I'm so sorry. I tend to look up when I'm talking, so I'm so glad you shouted out. Um, I was just saying how much I agree with you on that and how important it is to work smarter, not harder. And how a lot of us have been doing some form of content creation in our fields for a hot minute. And a lot of times you can either dig back and give something a new look, or absolutely, as you said, breaking something up and giving it a new twist. But cycling and reusing and reimagining all of the things you've already put so much hard work and effort into, or taking an existing photo, and chopping out the background and sticking it into a new graphic. I do think work smarter, not harder. And is even as you said, just simply reusing the same thing, but on a variety of platforms, I think is huge, because it can feel really overwhelming if you're like, oh my gosh, now I've got to be on what platform and how many times, you can reuse a lot of the information or a lot of the work you've already done. I know you're probably going to get into talking about some of the different ways you can, schedule to push all those things out into different directions. So, yes, I am all for maximizing our efforts.
That is the truth. That is the truth. Something can have multiple lives after you create it. And also too, I'm not necessarily suggesting like take something, because you don't want your customers or your community to feel like your content is super redundant and not thoughtful. So I'm not suggesting like take something and repost it 100 times and who cares how many times people see it. I do think there's this element of tailoring the content to the platform, and this absolutely requires some knowledge of what works best on each platform. And this really just comes from firsthand experience of A B testing and experimenting, because there is no magic recipe for success. For example, I've discovered that on Twitter, including links with image posts reduces the reach and interaction time after time. So I've just kind of stopped including them on our image posts on our Crystal store. And you'll notice our content, our media content over the last month has transitioned into no more links in our image posts. And now we're just creating a thread and replying to the image with the link. I've never done this before, but in my monthly review session recently, I noticed, I was like, okay, like what's going on with our Twitter content? Like, why is no one, then we made this change and we tested it. And I was like, okay, this is working a bit better. But I do include links on Facebook where you can click through them. And I do, but I don't include links on Instagram captions because they're not clickable. So maybe on Instagram, you'll connect your product catalog and you'll tag products, but it's important to kind of be mindful of the platform. What do you think about that, Abby?
That is absolutely true. And I have to say, when I first heard that about links in Twitter, it's been several months, and I was kind of resistant to it at first because I was so used to marketing on Facebook. And I thought, no, that can't be true. And so I really was resistant to that. But the minute, damn it, I started doing it differently and not including, as you said, I just added as a second tweet, like as a thread, and it makes a world of difference. It seems like the silliest, littlest thing, but you're right. It makes a world of difference. And so now I do the same thing. I will, create a post with the graphic, and then I will have like link below or some cute little emoticon to indicate the link is below, and then I will add it as a thread, and it makes all the difference in number of interactions and views that tweet gets. But similarly, Facebook, I'll definitely still use the link. And you're right. You really just need to know your platform. And as you said, it takes a little time and patience and practice, or tuning into things like resources like this that can kind of help give you the heads up so that you don't have to waste as much time and energy as maybe we did trying to narrow down those things. I don't know why I tend to be resistant to people saying, no, really, this works better. I guess I've always had to learn the hard way, but once I finally tried it for myself, it really does make a difference. So please, cautionary tale, just listen. It really does work.
That's so funny. I was also very resistant when someone first said it to me. And similarly, I was like, what do you mean? Like, doesn't make any sense. Like, link should be in the caption. So if someone's interested in what the image is pointing them to, they can just like click it. But apparently not. That's not how the algorithm is set up here on Twitter. So you live and you learn. And I think too, as we're talking about social media platforms specifically, I think it's kind of enticing for small businesses to want to explore paid advertising. And there are so many different, you can do Google ads, you can do Facebook ads or Instagram or TikTok. I mean, any platform that you post content on, you can pretty much advertise on at this point. But I do want to urge people to be cautious about don't blow your budget on paid ads. Building an organic audience and community takes so much time and effort. It requires showing up every day. It's not easy, but paid ads do not have any guaranteed return on investment. Spending $500 on a Facebook ad campaign does not guarantee you the equivalent of $500 in sales or even $500 in lifetime value. Um, I kind of feel like it's almost a gamble of whether they're going to produce results or not sometimes. So be mindful of how much you allocate to stuff. What's your experience been like with paid ads, Abby? I must say, I've yet to hit the jackpot. Like I have a baseline of ad spend that I'm willing to put into like Google ads, and occasionally we'll do a social media campaign, but I've just have yet to see any real productive outcomes from those.
This is a good conversation because the truth is it's changed tremendously. Again, in the early days of my brick and mortar, which was like 17 years ago, all I did was print ads. They were fucking expensive, so expensive. And you don't get as many views in a print ad necessarily as you're going to get on a digital ad. But but and again, I went into that brick and mortar underestimating what I would need to spend. I have to say, you aren't necessarily going to see with advertising and marketing like a direct exchange. You spent 500 on this ad, you're going to get 500 in sales next month. It, in my opinion, it doesn't necessarily work that way. And so, yes, be mindful, but something to consider, especially I think for a store, for whether it's online or in person, you have to build this top of mind awareness. And people tend to, especially in like, I'm in a somewhat conservative area where yoga might not be everyone's like go to, at least when I first opened a yoga studio 17 years ago. People will sometimes need to see your name and your advertisement, I don't know how many times, maybe even a full year before they will finally see it again and think, today's the day I'm going to go try that new thing that kind of makes me feel weird. But today I've seen this ad enough and I finally have enough weird trust in my brain because I've seen that name and that logo and that ad enough times that psychologically now I feel compelled to make a call to action. Not everyone is like that, and it depends on your demographic. But I do think there's something to be said for the value of marketing those ads that you're not necessarily going to see an immediate or big return on. So that's one thing to keep in mind. When I did shift to online marketing, I will say in the early days of paid Facebook advertising, I feel like that was a tremendous resource, especially for booking my IRL events. When I would book a workshop or when I would book my teacher training or um, uh, not necessarily my daily classes, but a specific event in the early days of Facebook advertising. And for me, that would have been, oh, let's say probably the heyday of my what I thought I really got the best return on my investment for marketing through paid Facebook advertising would have probably been around 2010 all the way till about when did it really shift and it stopped being as valuable because they started changing things, and algorithms started changing, and I think probably because of other social media platforms, honestly. But I would say 2014, 2016, something along those lines. It stopped being quite as valuable. And in definitely the last several years, it just didn't pay off. So I stopped kind of doing it. I have never experimented with paid Twitter advertising, primarily based on the last several years of my Facebook paid advertising. It just started to fizzle out. But boy, there was a chunk of time where it was really, really invaluable, in my opinion. And I don't know exactly what did change. I didn't dig deep enough to find out. I just tend to try to stay flexible with what the trends are. And if that doesn't work anymore, fuck it, I'm not going to keep spending a bunch of money there. I'm going to shift the way I do things. I really started focusing more hardcore on my organic. And honestly, because I had spent all that time and money building, I went from 0 people to over 4,000 on our Facebook page in that time that we grew. And my direct email marketing, which we haven't talked about, but I built my direct email marketing list from 0 to well over 12,000 people from a combination of organic, but I do think those few paid Facebook ads back in the day when they were effective were really helpful. So that's my little soapbox about that. What do you think about all that?
Absolutely. I think the landscape has changed a lot, and I think it's I think it's mostly related to protecting people's privacy. I think in the heydays of Facebook ads, there was less, well, I think there was less awareness about what users were necessarily giving up in order to be shown ads that would resonate with them. And if you think about it, it's like, yeah, if your ad campaign is performing well, that means they're doing a really good job at showing it to people who are most likely to buy it. And it's like, how do they know that? And it's like, well, because people put their whole life on Facebook. You know how old somebody is, you know what school, where they work, what their interests are, what music they listen to, what they talk to their friends about. But in the last few years, there have been some there I think the user has become more aware in terms of wanting to protect their own private their data and their information, and privacy has come to light. And I think honestly that is probably the main factor in why Facebook ads and just paid advertising is not performing as well. That being said, it's like paid advertising is definitely one important avenue, and I definitely don't think it should be neglected. I just think it should be handled with care. uh, it's important to have kind of a set budget and just be mindful that while it will produce results in the long term, be mindful of the funds available to you in the present, and don't overspend expecting any immediate return. But that being said, I mean, we haven't really touched on referral marketing and the power of making your best customers affiliates of your brand and recognizing them with special offers and incentives. So I do think another great way that you can just capitalize on digital marketing is like specifically focusing on these referral incentives and like letting people know, hey, if you share our store with someone and they make a purchase, you'll get $5 or $10 off your next purchase. And these are just examples. But I have seen referrals do really well, or even just membership programs where, like, I have one for the local handmade ice cream place in our in our town. They have this little punch card, and after you buy, I think and I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that I have purchased 10 pints of ice cream. Oh my god. This, now that I'm saying out loud, this like sounds ridiculous. Like, who am I? So whatever, after you buy 10 pints of ice cream, you get a free pint, and this is cute little punch card, and you put it in your wallet. And it's like there are digital equivalents of this where, after your customer reaches a certain number of actions that you're looking them to take, it could even be, referring subscribers and not necessarily a purchase or someone spending money. What do you think about referral incentives, Abby?
I definitely think they are an extremely smart way to go. I have to say, when I had a brick and mortar, this came up a lot as a suggested thing, and there were times we tried it. It's just hard to manage. I never found a great way to manage it when I had a brick and mortar. I do think when we're here in Web3, there are so many creative and cute ways to do it. Like POAPs, for example, is something I've tried to do. When people take part in our challenges, then they collect POAPs. And if they get all the POAPs, then they get their name in a drawing for another prize. I think there are a lot of creative things you can do with Web3 that make it easier to manage digitally. When I was in my Web2 experience, I always strived to do more reward programs, referral programs, because once upon a time I worked in the day spa industry as a massage therapist before I opened my own studios, and that was always a huge revenue source. Honestly, for the day spa industry was referral. They would have punch cards and such. Just when I opened my own studio as small business owner, wearing all the hats, it was always a challenge to find a really good resource or method to do it that didn't feel like constant fuckery where I wasn't going to mess up somebody's number of punches or whatever. But in Web3 land, I'm loving that type of thing. So what are your thoughts there? Do you have a better system? What are there some systems that you've had success with? I'd love to pick your brain on that, honestly.
Yeah, hey, this is a great segue because the next thing I wanted to talk about was tools and technology to make your life easier. And it's so funny that I mentioned like the punch card example, which is definitely very old school, although still used in the modern day. There are so many like kind of online digital alternatives. I've heard of people using NFTs themselves as membership tokens. And if you have a certain NFT in your wallet, then you're allocated a certain tier of customer or user. That being said, I really like what we use on our stores called Smile. It's specifically meant for like online e-commerce stores, and it is basically a pre-built referral program that gives people points for sharing things on social media or making purchases. And then as they earn those points, they can cash the points in for dollars off of a purchase. So I really like that one. But there are so many different tools to make your life easier. Referral programs aside, there are programs that you can use to create and schedule your content, including email and text. I definitely encourage you all, if you have a small business, to review the options and take advantage of different free trials to see what's best suited for your business. Definitely try not to opt into any long term contracts without a trial. I've made that mistake many times. This whole conversation is fueled by mistakes that Sierra and Abby have made. So, yes, I'm speaking from the experience of making my life very hard on many occasions and really encouraging you to use the technology at your fingertips. I'm sure there are plenty of people here who love Canva. We use Canva all the time to make graphics. A lot of our marketing material is made using Canva and product imagery. We There are so many platforms for emails. There's Klaviyo, there's Mailchimp, there's SMS marketing if you want to text your customers. I mean, I just think it's a matter of figuring out how you want to reach the customer, and then, okay, what's the easiest, least manual? It's 2022. We don't need to be doing things manually. You don't need to be sending messages out individually. That's a lot.
It really is a lot, and you're absolutely right. And I think, some of us like start with a thing and we get so settled into it. For example, I started with Constant Contact as my direct email marketing, which added other features over the years like surveys and different things along those lines. And in the pandemic age, they added some other, kind of nice features for online classes and such. But holy shit balls, it got expensive, incredibly expensive. And the fees just kept getting bigger and bigger. And my list was so big that it really did get a bit unmanageable. And so in the last year or two of my brick and mortar, I shifted to BrandBot. And I liked BrandBot because you could still do direct email marketing, but they also had SMS, text messaging. And I never really set it up in all the best ways, but there were some really great, I think actually they had a way you could set up referral program and different, like maybe I haven't seen you in 6 months. You could set up different campaigns. But boy, it just wasn't as attractive. It was definitely a trade off, But boy, if all you need to do is get a little bit of information out there, you can put any graphic you want in there. It was very, very economical compared to Constant Contact. I knew a lot of people that used MailChimp, but when at once upon a time, MailChimp you couldn't use as many email addresses as I had gathered. So I didn't use them once upon a time. But as you said, it's 2022. You can't turn around without finding some sort of a service or automation out there that will help you make what you do easier. Yes to Canva, by the way, freaking love it. I love, love, love Canva and pay the professionals so I can get all the extra bells and whistles. That being said, just like Sierra said, try things out, try things on for size before you get locked into having to pay through the nose for a service you may or may not end up utilizing as much, or that you might not be as happy with. Maybe you can partner with some sucker like me that's already paying all the professional fees for all the stuff, and pay a little something. I don't know. There are probably other ways to do things so that you're not on the line for a huge investment that may or may not work to your favor. Kind of like Shutterstock. I used to pay so much money for because I go nuts enjoying all the cool graphics and things you can create. But with things like Canva, having so many stock images that you can utilize now, I gave up that really expensive Shutterstock membership, for lack of a better word, at the moment, a long time ago. So it's important to really think about your resources, as Sierra said, kind of what is my budget for some of these different things that I know I'm going to need, but how can I really use that time and that money and that energy really wisely to try to maximize my efforts here, so I'm not spending so much on resources that and tools that may not even get utilized that much, or that I could get the same kind of thing for a fraction of the price and that kind of stuff. There are lots of forums online, at least like yoga studio owners. There was a forum online where we could kind of discuss some of these things when we were having, trouble figuring out, oh, is everybody wasting as much money on Constant Contact as I am? You can ask some of your peers or small business owners. That can be really, really helpful resource.
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned that in terms like one of the first things that I'll do is I'll Google reviews of like a potential marketing partner, whether even if it is an app or like some type of e-service, you can go. And I wish I did this before finding our last text message marketing partner. I'm not even going to speak their name because I feel like they're like the boogeyman. I had an awful experience using a text marketing provider, and I felt so stupid because after I had this bad experience, after I went and Googled and I found that there were countless people who had had a horrific experience with this company. And I just felt silly at that point for not having done appropriate research before locking myself into this contract and kind of being stuck at that point. That being said, it's important to be adaptable. Making mistakes sucks, but making the same mistake day after day is just compound senseless destruction. So it's okay to make a mistake, but once you've realized, you have to recalibrate and kind of change what you're doing. And having only been an entrepreneur 6 years, I do not have all of the wisdom that Abby has gained, but I must say, I think one of my biggest skills is my adaptability and my ability to persevere and adjust and change when I see that things are not working out. I feel like a lot of people, when they see things aren't working out for an extended period of time, it's like they roll over and die. And it's like, well, I guess this isn't gonna work for me. And it's like, oh no, honey, I double down. I'm like, oh, I'm putting the boxing gloves on. So being adaptable is a strength when it comes to being a business owner, a person, but absolutely when it comes to your digital marketing, because honey, not everything is going to go viral. You might think you have a golden piece of content that deserves to be viral and for everyone to see it and love it, but that's not how the internet works. So it's important to be adaptable. And when you see that you're consistently creating something that is not getting any love or recognition, maybe it's time to tweak some things. What do you think, Abby?
I love, love, love all of what you just said. And isn't it true? Isn't it the one piece of content that you think is definitely, oh, this is it, honey. This is the one, right? Those are the ones that always flop too. It's always my favorite piece of content or my favorite thing that I've done on TikTok that nobody gives a shit about. So I do think you have got to be flexible. You can't be like attached, and you can't take yourself so seriously, and you've got to pay attention to what people respond to. You're right. That is not how the internet works. It's sometimes unfathomable to me what people find interesting or relatable or the thing they interact with the most, but it isn't for me to decide. It's just for me to, try to capitalize on those moments and notice, okay, this is what folks are responding to, and to lean into that, and how can I maximize the efforts around that thing, whether I loved it or not. You're exactly right about that.
I do feel like a part of it is just shooting your shot and just hoping it goes in. Like, I feel like there's a million YouTube videos that are like, no, check these boxes and do these things, and your content will be viral and your product will sell out. And it's just like, no. All of us are just showing up and shooting our shot. And sometimes they go in, but a lot of times they hit the rim and bounce off. Is what I've discovered. But I will say, for anyone, and I'm sure I know that a lot of us in this space are content creators, and I know because I've seen it from several people in here. I know that most of us have had at some point a piece of content go viral or semi-viral. And viral, I feel, is looks different for each of us. For someone who gets barely any engagement, going viral could be 25, 50 likes in your realm and in your world. That is viral for you. But for some of us, like, this account has a large reach. We have nearly 12,000 followers. If we get a tweet over 100 likes, it's like, whoa, okay, this is making headway. Over 1,000 likes, it's like, oh my God, okay, okay, this is, something's happening here. So that being said, it's kind of just like, no one knows what the magic answer is to make people click, retweet. I mean, obviously, cashing in on memes and like societal and cultural movements that the collective seems to be entertained by is okay. But to me, it's like, okay, like, that's not very original. And it's like, what value are you really adding to the ecosystem by like having another Michael Jordan crying meme? Is like, does the internet really need that? So I also feel like it's important to be intentional and to honestly like not hoe yourself out trying to go viral, because it really waters down the type of content that you're creating. And if you're creating content that's valuable, it might take a year, it might take 6 months, it might take 6 days. It will be found and appreciated eventually, is what I believe. Do you think that's crazy, Abby?
No, I think you're right. I mean, a little hoeing, maybe. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think you're right. I think trying to find that balance between staying relevant, right? Like, hey, I know what's going on, and sometimes it's fun to interact with like the meme of the moment or the whatever, right? The thing that makes people smile or laugh or scratch their head that day. But being original, there's nothing better than that, being original and continuing to add value to your brand is going to keep setting you apart and keep reminding people like, oh, that's why, that's why I keep showing up on that person's page, or that's why I'm real interested in what they have going on. Because when your authentic light starts to shine through in these interactions, in this content that we're creating, that's the vibe people really want to feel and see. And that's the thing that makes that lasting impression. And then, yeah, some of the relevant stuff just kind of keeps us all connected. It's like, that knowing look across the water cooler or whatever, like, sharing in the inside joke, but continuing to be true to who you are and what your voice is, I think is what really makes for masterful marketing, honestly.
Absolutely. This has been such an amazing conversation. I've had so much fun talking about marketing with you this last. Oh my God, I cannot believe we are approaching the hour. So, that being said, I do not want to close this space without giving the opportunity for our amazing listeners to request the mic and come up and add to the conversation. Even if you just want to come and say hi, you are more than welcome to. So, before we close the space, I'm just going to graciously open my arms. You can't see me, but my arms are open right now. And anyone who would like to come up on the stage and add anything to the conversation is more than welcome. If not, no pressure at all. This is a weekly Twitter space, and we will be back next week. Oh, looks like we got a request. Let's see. We have Miss Justina. How you doing?
It is all you call me because all of a sudden, whenever I get invited up to be a speaker, my phone decides that my earbuds no longer work. So, but you can hear me,
I can hear you
and
just fine. So I
yay,
got
yay, and I can hear you in my earphones. It all went okay. Tech didn't hate me today. Tech has a personality. Tech is alive. Don't believe it's not. You know, like when it goes down, that's an attitude. Okay. I just came on to say thank you for this space, and I came on to say I was listening today because I have my virtual assistance business, and I just got like my first client, and I'm doing all the things for her. And so I wanted to kind of find out any tips and tricks y'all were approaching it with. I've been in marketing for about 5 years, but I've been in like agencies and stuff, so it's really exciting for the past year or so to like take on my own brand, take on another person's brand. I guess I would just say when you're asked, when you're designing or when you're thinking about a website, you're thinking about SEO, thinking about your like, content SEO and stuff. What tool would you recommend kind of starting with, knowing your pillars and stuff like that, to kind of get your, keyword planning going, basically?
hello, hello. Congratulations on branching out to do your own independent consulting. That is really exciting. It is also really stressful. So I hope it has been more exciting than stressful for you as you get started on this journey. I think that there are a lot of different ways that you can do keyword research, but I think Google being like the big boy in terms of the search engine that is most popular is probably the best place to start. And I know that Google specifically has, I think they call it Google Keyword Planner.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's what you can use to like search volume and traffic. And honestly, a lot of times I'm just playing around in Google Ads, trying different terms against each other. But one thing I will say is like avoid using, like, I've seen a lot of brands for some crazy reason want to pay for the marketing around their own brand name, which is really interesting. I guess there's different schools of thought on this, but I would try and use, like, if people are going to Google the brand name, and if your brand name is not something that a million other things are named, like, you're going to come up, and it's almost like a waste of paid search money. So I feel like when you're doing keywords and SEO, it's important to think about words a bit further out than the brand name and tagline.
That's smart. I think I actually might have to balance that because you're completely, I know, understand exactly what you're saying. And I also was thinking she might have a particular problem because, like, her name is Lauren Turner, which is a really popular name. But also, on top of that, she's a therapist. And there's a lot of therapists named Lauren Turner. So organically, she's not coming up, like right away. And that's really like upsetting for me. I was like, so I might have to do something about that in the long range. But in the short term, I appreciate that advice to just get playing in Google Planner and, branch out from there. Thank you.
I also think too, I just want to add one other thing. I think if she's a therapist, I think it would be helpful to have keywords around the types of therapy that she's offering and the location that she's available. And if she's remote,
Smart.
fantastic.
Thank you. That's a really good place to start for sure. Thank you.
And I see we have Frenchie as well. How you doing, Frenchie? Thanks for hanging out.
Hello, beautiful people. I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. What's shaking, bacon? I'm loving this conversation. What did I want to say? I know I had something to say. It was really important. It was life changing. It was gonna change the lives of everybody in here, but I forgot it. So too bad for everybody. So I'll go to my plan B, which is, um, so I've been in this space for a long time, and but I've always been a supporter of everybody's projects. I've never had my own project, and so I never really paid much attention to marketing and things like that because, well, I never really had my own project. I was just always like buying everybody else's NFTs and retweeting their stuff and all that stuff, which I obviously totally want to continue to do. But it's taken me this long to kind of find my way in this space, and I never wanted to rush anything. Actually, I started off in this space by rushing into a project. Jana might remember it. It was called like Real Humans of NFT, and we told people stories and stuff like that. And it was a really good idea and everything. But the problem was is that I just rushed into it too fast and had some help from some people who didn't really quite know what they were doing either, and all that stuff. And I'm glad I did it because it was a lesson learned. But it caused me to like really step back and really think about what is what speaks to me in this space and what do I really want to do. And so it's taken me this long to kind of develop a project or two. And now I'm starting to get into the frame of mind of marketing it. And so coming to rooms like this with like wonderful professionals like yourselves are like really is really really good for me to just kind of listen to and hear all of these questions, like, you know, those like paying for promotion and all that kind of stuff is just really helpful to me. So I just want to just to kind of thank you for this space, and I'd like to kind of, you know, keep coming to these kinds of spaces as I develop and try to market my project, because I believe in both of the things that I'm doing, that I'm about ready to kick off here, or that I am kicking off and developing and working hard on right now. I believe in these things whole freaking heartedly. And I'm so, my God, you guys, I'm so excited. And so I can't wait to just, you know, to do it. And so, but I want to do it right, and I don't want to rush it. And I want to just try to like take my time but take my time, but also work hard. You know, I want to do it right. The problem with that though too is I'm the kind of guy that like always wants to do it. Since I always want to do it right with every decision I make in my life, I end up not doing anything because I don't know if it's the right decision or not, and so then I don't do anything. And this goes for me like moving out of state, like I've been wanting to do. This goes for me like looking for a new job, or this goes for me like just whatever decision that I have to make in my life. I usually don't make the decision because I quote want to do it right, and I don't know what the right move is, you know? So I think that what I'm so let me just ask you this question. So then what do you do? Because I have a feeling that there's a lot of people in here maybe like this. So, what do you do when you want to do the right thing, but you're not sure of how to do it, but then you know you're just not going to make a decision because you don't want to make the wrong decision in moving forward?
Sweet Frenchie, thank you so much. I have a quick response and then I want to turn the mic over to Abby. So, what you're describing is called analysis paralysis. And I know full well because I also suffer from this. And it's basically where you spend so much time thinking about and analyzing all the different options and outcomes that you literally become paralyzed and you kind of just become stagnant and immobile because you're like, where do I begin? Is it the right time to begin? So honestly, I feel like the first step is recognizing that you're getting in your own way and that you're blocking yourself, and to be, and honestly just to like, I don't want to say to be okay with failure, but like that's kind of what it boils down to, is like kind of releasing your perfectionism and understanding that it's not a complete failure if you learn from it. And I feel like that's what most of us have a hard time accepting, because the if you learn from it part just falls off and it's just like, well, I didn't hit my goal, so it's a failure. What do you think, Abby?
First of all, I want to send a bunch of love and hugs to Frenchie, who was sitting on a hospital bed this morning. I don't know if you're still there, my friend, but I
Still am.
you are. God love you. Let's all send some extra tidal waves of love to Frenchie and his back, who I know that's been a real source of pain and grief on top of a lot of things. And so I love that you're here, and I love that this is helpful. And I want to say I believe in you 1,000%. Anything you do is going to be outstanding and amazing. And you've done so much work here to build this organic network of connections and people who really respond to you and resonate with what you're doing. And so anything you do is going to be amazing, first of all. And secondly, I think we all have those moments, but really what Sierra said is right. You know, we get in our own heads so much that we let anxiety and fear kind of keep us from the blessings that the universe has in store for us. So I just want to remind you to keep your heart and your hands open, keep that face turned up to the sun, keep being as intentional as you are, one foot in front of the other, or hospital wheel bed in front of the other, as you slowly make your way towards, you know, all the things that you desire in life, because I fully believe they're going to come your way. I don't know how they can't. You put so much goodness into the world. I really think tidal waves of that is going to come right back to you, friend. So I'm excited to see what you're going to do in this space, and sending you tons and tons of love.
Yay! Thank you. Again. I think it's the people around me though too that like I really try to like glob on if that's probably not the right English, but like I really want to hang out with, like someone told me a long time ago, if you hang out with the dog you're going to get fleas. And I've never forgotten that. That was when I was a teenager and doing a bunch of drugs and getting kicked out of all these high schools and all this kind of stuff, and I've never forgotten that. And so, I kind of choose to hang out with the winners, and literally like there's so many people in this room that I follow and follow me back, and that we're all like we're friends, and I want something from each and every one of you. I think there's something that you can all like. I strive to kind of be, with uh, a lot of what a lot of you are, and so I think that makes me into a better person. And so I really appreciate those words, because I want to keep sticking around. And I'm really excited to see where this goes. I've kind of developed a new purpose, in being in here. So it's on one side, it's fun to support and retweet others and just like and shill everybody else. But I've just found this whole new thing where I'm like, holy shit, like I can make a contribution here, and this is what I want to do. And so I think I'm so passionate about it that that's where I'm getting handcuffed. Like if it was a project I was like, yeah, like let's just give it a try, I probably wouldn't mind failing or whatever. But because I believe in this so freaking much and I want to do it right, I that's where I'm getting the arrested development as I'm trying to or what did you analysis paralysis, that like I just really want to do it right. So just taking it one step at a time, and I'm trying to flow along. My Over the course of the past 2 days, I've come up with this little just analogy, and we've all heard it before, where we just kind of go with the flow of the river instead of try to fight it. And I don't want to be a salmon like swimming upstream anymore. I just want to kind of flow with the river, like everything that's happening in my life, with relationships, with my job, with in question, with just all these decisions that I have to make. I'm my body breaking down. Like I want to go with the flow of with what's happening instead of try to fight it all. And once I made that conscious decision to go with the flow of where my life is rolling right now, where it's flowing, I have found this incredible sense of freedom, in this. And so it's almost like no matter what happens right now, I feel I feel free. I feel okay, with whatever's going to happen. Like right now, I'm looking at the next 2 months of being an incredible amount of physical pain until the insurance companies can decide what they're going to do with my body and all this kind of stuff. But that's where I'm at. And so if there's a freedom to like to knowing that, you know what I mean, in a sense of trying to fight it. And yes, there's other things I can do to try to heal, and there's other options I can take and all this kind of stuff. But that's just physical. But like mental, spiritual, all the other stuff, I'm just kind of running with the flow, and there's just a lot of freedom in that, and I really appreciate that. And so, listening to rooms like this, not just business but mindful business, I think is those two words are really, really important together. And I'm really happy that you said this, that the title of this room is mindful business, because I just think that's just so freaking key. You can't really, I think you need to have both of those words together to really have success in this place. So we'll see. So anyway, thanks. I'm just rambling. So love y'all. Look forward to keep listening. Okay, bye.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you for your vulnerability. I'm so excited for your new journey. Sometimes when things get really crazy and hectic in our lives, it's a lot and it's overwhelming, but it's also a sign of transformation and new beginnings. And it's like things get shaken up so that they can be settled in the perfect way, if that makes any sense. So I'm excited to see what's to come for you. I don't think we've ever not had, I don't think we've ever denied speaker requests, but we are a bit over today. And today might be the first day that we have to, because we're about 10 minutes over. But I do want to encourage anyone who's requested to come up and we did not have the time to bring you up, that you join us next week. This is a weekly Twitter space, and hopefully we can have you. I do want to be conscious of everyone's time. You have any closing words for us, Abby, as we close the space out?
I can't believe how quickly time passes when we are together. I always get so much out of these conversations, and today was no exception. Really enjoyed sharing space with all of the listeners and the few who could come up and speak. And most of all, you, my friend Sierra, thank you so much for all the time and effort you put into every week and every episode. And I'm excited for October and the little shift we have coming up and all of the things we're going to dive into in the next month. Really appreciate you, friend. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Thank you for being my lovely co host. That being said, our October schedule, we're switching things up a bit. We're going to be moving our spaces to later in the evening. The last couple months, we've been doing our spaces midday on Thursdays. And for the sake of our own schedules and to accommodate everyone else who is usually working during this time, a lot of our community members are working at this time. We're going to push it a bit later in the evening. So we'll be sharing our new schedules soon. That has out all the details for October. We're also going to be having a Halloween party. Maybe there will be a prize for the best costume. I don't know. I love Halloween and I love seeing people's costumes.
Can I can I just make a quick suggestion? Can we call it a Doxdoom party?
That is really good. You should consider you should consider trademarking that one.
It's been on my mind for a while, and I'm like, oh my god, that'd be so amazing.
I love that. I love seeing everyone's costumes, especially when people dress their kids up and their pets up. It's so fun. So I'm really looking forward to spooky season. That being said, thank you all for hanging out with us this afternoon. We do record these and upload them to YouTube. So if you join late and you missed the beginning of the discussion, you can play back on YouTube. Hope everyone has a lovely evening and we'll see you soon. Bye.